Well, I am from Pine Bluff. I am the Communications and Marketing Director for the City of Little Rock, Marketing Manager for the City of Little Rock. Let me get that title right. So I guess my hobbies are I enjoy cooking. I enjoy traveling, but I don't have as much time to travel as I would love to, but eventually, hopefully that'll change soon. One thing that many people don't know about me is that I was in the Army. I was in the U.S. Army Reserve. So I'm actually a very good marksman. Let's see. Okay, so I started my PR career about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, because I had been in journalism for a very long time, almost 20 years in journalism. And then when I left the last newspaper I worked for, which is the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, I did a brief stint as a copywriter, which was a nice little change of pace, but it was kind of a slow job, and then kind of boring. But it was I needed it. It was nice to not have to feed the beast every day. So then I got headhunted by Mangan Holcomb Partners, which they came looking for me. They didn't know where I was. Julie Robbins actually was the one that reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I don't know where you are. I know you're not at the newspaper anymore, but if you've ever considered a career in PR, we'd love to talk to you." So I went over there and did that. And so I actually wound up working there for 3 years. And then, so that's how that happened. It fits. It fits me. I hadn't really considered it that much before. When I was in journalism, most people in journalism, they say, the ink is in your blood. And it kind of was when I was younger. But then as I grew and developed my writing, there was only so far you can go. Either you can be an editor or you can, which editing was, a promotion, but I wasn't really I didn't feel like I was going to be as excited with that. That was the logical next step. So what matters in PR for me is that it's such a wide range of experience that you get to have. You get to write. I mean, I still write like a journalist. I get to be strategic. I get to be creative. I get to have some hand in design aspects of campaigns or some photography. I take photos now for the city, social media, and different events and so on and so forth. So being able to do such a wide range of things really appeals to me, and I think that's one of the best things about PR is you get to roll all your skills into one job and then actually deploy them. Sometimes you go to school, you never use some of the stuff, but you really do actually use most of the skills that you learn in this career. What's funny is when I started at Mangan, that's when Scandal sort of was just coming on, and so watching the Olivia Pope character, I was like, I can see some of that. I mean, I can see some of that here in this agency, even though a much smaller scale, obviously, but I could see some of it. So I won't necessarily say that she's like a role model because she's not a real person, but she is based on a real person, and that real person is kind of a rock star. Well, so yeah, I think that's what where I would kind of go with that. I feel like it's kind of exciting, and I would be kind of curious to be on her side of the house sometime. But that's a little too much. I would say the basic numbers. I mean, there's only 13% of us Black people, for example, in the country to begin with. So in the profession, that whittles down the number even more. There's just not that many of us. When I was in journalism, for example, in the newsrooms, I was always one of one very often. I mean, at this paper, I was one of two. At the paper in Fort Worth, which was one of the most diverse papers in the country, there was maybe 3 or 4 African Americans, men in the newsroom, which was refreshing and surprising to me. It was like, even when I worked in the Black press, it was, that kind of rivaled, the level of diversity there. So I feel like one of the things that's a problem for us is that I think students who look like us, me, aren't often exposed to this as a career. They don't I don't think they don't see it. When I was young, I didn't see it. I could see, I'll say, for example, the Huxtables, I could see something like that. I could see lawyer, doctor. I could even see news people, but on this side was not something that I could say I ever encountered. I like to think that younger generations are a little more exposed, scandal, stuff like that, fixers. My nieces and nephews are aware of what I do. So this is a career that they can see, a black man in a career that, perhaps is not that common. There are lots of agencies around in the world, and obviously we know that, but it's still not a common career, lawyer, doctor, all those things pop right up to the top when people talk. It's just like, I won't say dime a dozen, but but it's a lot. There are a lot of those folks, and there are more of us probably in those professions than in this one. So I would say that is one of the challenges, is the exposure that we have to younger generations, and then just, again, like I said, the sheer numbers. There's just not that many of us to go around. The main benefit is the difference of point of view that you get from people of color and people who see through a different lens than you do. One of the clients that I had, for example, was formerly was Department of Arkansas Heritage, and one of their museums is Mosaic Templars Cultural Center. Well, no offense to Mangan, but at the time, before I got hired, they were all white. So they would experience the museum from a different point of view than I will. And so once I got on, and I said, one of the things that we discussed was, well, radio is really a better medium for advertising to their patrons or potential patrons, the people that you want. If you want people to come to Mosaic Templars, you kind of need more radio. It's not quite the same as with one of the DAH's other museums, which may be HAM, which is Historic Arkansas Museum, or Old State House, where you could do some print ads, and that works for them pretty well. But radio worked better for Mosaic. But that was a perspective that I brought to the team that they didn't have formerly, and that it was appreciated. They finally were like, yeah, Lamar was absolutely right about that. So and I went through this diversity training class, and one of the things that she's inclusion training one time, and one of the things that they talked about was all the lenses through which we see the world. And you see as female, male, parent, not parent, military experience. My military experience changes the way I see the world somewhat, because I'm going to be a little different than not, well, a little different from somebody else, There's also, so I think, our race, our ethnicity is also one of those lenses. And, my experience is not going to be the same as every other person that's, every other potential firm or client, when you have the balance. And you need that balance if you're going to have a successful campaign. Maybe recruitment on the front end, maybe at the high school level, maybe at the freshman level, where before people declare what their majors are, perhaps that could be a little more aggressive, which is interesting because we're an industry that is all about creating change and driving, numbers, so to speak, driving attendance or driving, at least helping boost sales and those types of things. But we aren't really promoting ourselves as a profession, as well as we probably could. One of the things that I find interesting is sometimes I don't know, I say, well, in my career, I just use mine. So I've only worked for one agency, so I can't really say, speak about it so broadly, I feel like at the agency where I worked, they made an effort, and but also by the same token, it's also a little sensitive, I guess is the word I'm trying to, because again, I was the only one there. So I was the diversity, the one person. We eventually got another person, and so it was as comfortable as I would, as it could be, and even as perhaps as it should be. But there were still those little moments where it's kind of where you're aware, and again, this goes back not just to the color of my skin, but to the perception and to the lenses through which we see the world. I had someone say, you're not as easy to read, or you don't seem as what's the word? I can't remember the word that was used, but like intense in certain moments. And I said, well, for one thing, I am different. I'm not you. I'm a black man. I've been in the military. I've had actual bullets flying across my head. So this crisis that our client is experiencing right now, true enough, is a crisis. But I'm not going to crack under pressure, or run around, screaming, because that's just not who I am. But that was, again, sort of one of those things where they don't see, how I grew up. I grew up different from you, perhaps much more resilient than you, and I've experienced these things that, that you have never experienced. So, my behavior, you can't expect me to behave the way that you do. Well, I just kind of talked about it, part of it. It was that case where, it was a Caucasian woman says to me, you're really hard to read, and we don't understand. I'm like, well, I'm not a white woman, so I won't react the same way that you reacted in this crisis. Similarly, there was one that was really funny to me. Not funny, but it was interesting, and I can laugh about it now. Now, mind you, I have nothing bad to say about this place where I used to work, but so they were bidding on a RFQ, response to RFQ or RFP, whichever one, for a state client. I'm not gonna name names. And so obviously, with state guidelines and federal and municipal, all these guidelines, have, Title VI, and, the questions are, have you any diversity on your staff, and what is the diversity of your staff? Those types of questions are in these official documents. And so I remember going to this meeting, and I remember them putting my name on the staff portion, even though I was like, there is no way I will ever have time to work on this client stuff. In no way that you guys really, really, truly want me to. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty good at what I do, of course, but there's no way even if that I could, So the only reason that I'm in this meeting is because I am the diversity. So that made me that was the first time since I've been in this business. Now, in other businesses, when I was in journalism, yes, I was very aware. But in this business, that was like the one that was like, you look around the room, it's like Sesame Street. It's like one of these things is not like the other, one of these things is not the same. And I was the one that was not the same. But, I get it. And we kept it real. I was like, so I am aware of why I'm here. And they were like, it's kind of almost unspoken. It's like, okay, well, that's you are correct. Just keep it real. I learned to just keep it real with myself and others, because you could, depending on who you are, you can let stuff like that kind of bother you, And I have had moments where I have worked in places where I'm like, wow, nobody looks like me, And then I've had moments where I've been working and I look up and I'm like, nobody really looks like me, but I didn't even notice until just now. I don't feel it until it just for some reason I just happen to look around, or, and or something, different, I guess, happens. I don't know how to really describe that, but I feel like what I learned was, again, keep it real with myself and with my colleagues, because, if you let stuff like that kind of fester, or I don't know if fester is the right word, but it's not necessarily that it's going to nag at you, but depending on your personality, it may bother you, and if you let it can bother you. And I think, so I learned that keeping it real helps me not be bothered by it, and then I can affect some change, by also keeping it real with people and say, okay, you probably shouldn't say those things. I know you didn't mean any harm, but that comment was a little weird, especially since I'm the only black person that works here, or the only, person of color that works here. That's really kind of, you made a broad statement about the company in general, but it's kind of like, you could be a little more sensitive, so, yeah. I'm excited that you're doing this project. I'm happy to be a part of it. I look forward to it continuing, hopefully next year and years to come. And I think that's pretty much it.